Welcome to Built with Purpose. I am Chris Fay, and this is the show where vision meets execution and leadership leaves a legacy. From design studios to innovation hubs and product lines to skylines, we meet the people building more than great companies. They're creating culture, driving impact, and shaping what's next. These are the stories and strategies behind how the world gets built with purpose. All right, everybody, welcome to Built with Purpose. Today is another episode of Between the Builds. Last week's episode was a really special one. I shook it up a little bit, and we actually hosted last week's episode at our company's kickoff meeting. So, every year we bring our entire team together face to face, and we talk about, where we're going, what the theme of the year is, and really it's a purpose to align each of our individuals to the opportunity ahead. And so it was really cool. We hosted it at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena, which in the city where I live is where the hockey teams play and everything. So it's this really cool, big arena. And, the idea was to help us think bigger. And what better place than to think bigger than to go inside of a huge arena that dwarfs our group. I think in the podcast I mentioned we had about 100 people there, 16,000 people. It was actually pretty cool. So when I came in, when I kind of started the day, this is before the podcast, but, I came in on the other side of the arena, kind of walked through, and, the perspective was, how often do you walk into an arena like that with this amazing freedom to go wherever you want to go, to sit wherever you want to sit, and to basically do whatever you want to do. The perspective was we typically walk in those arenas. We have an assigned ticket. We're going to be watching a particular game. We're going to be sitting in a particular area. We're going to be able to do particular things. But when you walk in this massive space and all of a sudden you're like, man, I can go wherever I want to go. We went down and played on the ice afterwards and shot hockey pucks and did human curling and ice skated, and it was a blast. But it was really cool to kind of help unopen your minds. And it says, well, what if you could treat your business? What if you could treat your life like that open arena? What if you could walk into your life or walk into your business or walk into the teams that you're leading and be unrestricted on where you can go, where you can sit, what you can do? And the reality is that's actually the choice that each of us have in our lives. Whether we want to see it or not, oftentimes these artificial constraints of money, job, location, where I'm at in my particular career, where I'm at in a particular team, oftentimes these external constraints can actually limit our thinking. And so if you can unlock those constraints, all of a sudden you can see much bigger than where you are today. So there's a story that I've shared, I think on the podcast before, but, I was talking to a kind of a growth and scale consultant. This was a number of years ago, really, really smart guy. His name is Mariano. And we were talking about kind of our business today and where we're going. And, he's asking me my vision, like, what do I see? Where do I see the business in the next 3 to 5 years? What are the limitations? What are the growth areas? And, I kind of gave him some feedback, and I'll never forget this day. He said, Chris, why are you thinking so small? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm probably thinking small, if I'm being honest, because of maybe some fear, right? I'm sitting there saying that we could be a $100 million a year organization. He's like, why can't you be a $300 million a year organization or a $500 million a year organization? And I was allowing these external constraints, and I would, to some extent, say artificial constraints, limit my thinking. And he said, why are you fearful about thinking that big about your organization? And I said, well, first off, number one, I've never been there before, right? So there's a fear of attacking something that you've never experienced, right? That kind of fear of the unknown. My perception was that running a business that's going to be that big means that I have to work 80 to 100 hours a week. I have to, be separate from my family and my kids and my wife and not have any balance in my life. And he said, Chris, you're thinking about this all wrong. Like, you can absolutely scale wherever you want to go and still maintain this balance in your life. You can still go work out. You can still see your kids' ball games at night times. You can still have an amazing relationship with your wife and achieve these. And the only way to do that is, number one, to have the right vision of where you want to go, and then to scale through others, through systems, through processes, through people and leadership. And so he really helped me unlock my mindset to what is possible. And that was the message I was trying to convey to our team at our kickoff meeting, is just, we allow these artificial constraints to limit our thinking of what we're capable of doing in our lives. And what if we could walk into our lives? What if we could walk into our business just like walking into an open arena? And we walk in there without the constraints of a ticket, without the constraints of where to go and what to watch, and with unlimited constraints of the ability to go anywhere that I want to go and do anything that I want to do. So it was a really awesome day. My guest that day, so we actually hosted Built with Purpose there on stage in front of the crowd. It was super, super fun. If you see the video, you'll see we're kind of sitting in front of the ice, and I had a hockey jersey made. My idea was I was actually going to skate out on the ice. I played ice hockey growing up, and so I was going to skate out on the ice and have this whole thing in the center of the ice. And then the day before, what was actually pretty funny, I was out there the day before, kind of rehearsing and kind of getting the day together. I put on a pair of skates because I'm going to try and see if I still got it. You know, when you put on rental skates, typically people have been walking on the concrete and they're flattening them down. And man, I went out on the ice, I got a couple laps in, and then I was like, I wonder if I can still hockey stop. And so I go out there, I try and hockey stop on the ice, and man, I busted my ass. I went completely horizontal, right on my back. Our marketing girl was there with me and scared the crap out of her. And I was like, yep, I'm not gonna skate out on the ice. So I walked around, which was a lot of fun. But you know, my guest that day was a gentleman named Kirk Zambetti. Kirk was on the executive team at Yeti. And I realized, funny, sitting there, if you listen to the podcast, that Zambetti rhymes with Yeti. So I had a pretty good laugh about that. But he was an executive at Yeti. He led sales. He used to work at Danaher and had done some amazing things in his career. And so we had some really good conversations about what are the things that we need to be thinking about as we grow and scale. You know, how do we handle our culture? How do we handle our communication? You know, he's coming from this huge organization, you know, and trying to kind of scale, thinking back to the size company that we are today. And so we had some really good dialogue about the things that it takes, the things that we need to hold true, and what are the things that help us scale. And it was really cool. I've got a couple other buddies that have worked in the Danaher world before, and there's a whole operating system called Danaher Business Systems that is really impressive. I've actually been learning a lot more about it recently, but you can think about, you may inside of your organization, you might run scaling up, you might run like traction, EOS. We run a system internally called Rhythm Systems. You might run Danaher Business Systems. But the concept is you have to have a system of accountability that enables you to create a vision, bring that vision back into annual goals, break those annual goals into quarterly milestones, and then break those quarterly milestones down into weekly sprints. And so no matter what system you use, it's about creating an accountability chart, about creating a vision, about creating policies and procedures and systems to run the business, and then to back into ultimately weekly accountability of how you get from point A to point B. And if you achieve each week, you're going to be on track to hit the month. If you're on track to hit the month, you're likely have a high propensity to hit the quarter. And if you're on track to hit the quarter, you're going to end up hitting the year. You hit the year, you're going to end up hitting your vision. So it's really cool to have somebody that has come from a much larger organization think about scaling that system down to something that we were talking about. And he was talking about the value of one-on-ones with your direct reports, just touch points, communication with your team. Talked about the value of just culture, you know, and as you grow and scale, making sure that you hold your culture sound. We talked a lot about, you know, as businesses grow, you need to change your thinking in the customers that you serve, you know, the people that are inside of your company. Sometimes everybody won't necessarily be able to scale to the next level. So about getting the right people and the right seats on the bus. And I thought that the conversation around customers was really interesting. You know, we have internally in our organization, we talk a lot about ideal customer profiles. So who are the right customers that we have the highest propensity to add value to their business and for them to add value to ours? And so we're looking for those customers that we can get deep inside of their companies. We can add tremendous value. We can have relationships, and we'll go find ideal customer profiles wherever they exist. And that's different from a regional mindset or from a product mindset, is focusing on the right customer type. And so Kirk was telling the story of, you know, when he took over, he had all these distributors and he cut the distribution market way down and actually was able to grow sales significantly because he was focusing on the right types of distributors, the right types of customers. They're going to help the business grow. So overall, it was just a really cool experience. I think that my biggest takeaway was, kickoff meeting days are probably one of my most favorite days in our company's year. It's just, you get to see everybody face to face, you get to network, have some fellowship, have some fun. One thing that we learned over the years of doing these kickoff meetings is we used to do sales training and technical training, and we would do individual breakouts, and we would use it more as a tactical business planning conversation. And every year I've taken more and more stuff off the agenda. And literally this year we came in, I did the opening keynote to talk about where we're going. We did a Built with Purpose podcast. We gave out annual awards, we had lunch, and then we went and played on the ice. And it was awesome. And I just think that less is more theme is amazing. You have the team together. You want them to leave there with a sense of inspiration, motivation, and alignment as far as where this organization is going. All the tactical stuff you can handle in meetings, in calls and such later on. But what's the purpose of that day? And that's what I love about our kickoff meetings now. It's just really high level, really inspirational. And, we're talking about thinking bigger and taking the next step. And, it was great to hear somebody like Kirk really reflect back on, what we're doing today, culture, discipline, ideal customer profiles, putting a system in place to grow and scale. Those are the core things that are going to enable you to get to the next level. And you just have more people, a more complicated organization, but it's still about culture, communication, systems, et cetera. And that's it. So it was a great confidence builder, I think, for me and the rest of our organization that says, hey, we're actually doing some things really, really well. And if we just continue to lean into these things as we grow and scale with an appropriate vision of where we can go in the future, we are on track to hit our goals and on track to be thinking bigger. So anyway, if you didn't hear last week's session, I would go back and listen to it. Kirk was awesome. We have some amazing folks coming up in the upcoming podcast that I'm really excited to share with you on some of these messages. 2026 is going to be a really, really exciting year. And with that, I hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you for listening to Built with Purpose. And this was another great episode of Between the Builds. See you next time. Okay, thanks for joining me on Built with Purpose. If you have enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It helps more bold leaders find the show. For resources and show notes, visit our website and connect with me, Chris Fay, on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep building great companies, cultures, and legacies with purpose.